Hello, I'm Graham Dale. I would be disheartened and dismayed if the vast majority of my fellow British citizens were not angry and disgusted by the shameful and sickening incidents of anti-Semitism that have exploded on the streets of Britain since the attack by Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October 2023. It can be argued till the cows come home about whether or not Israel's response has been proportionate. But that's a discussion for another time. The point I should like to address is how, since immediately after the Hamas pogrom, there have been pro-Palestinian marches numbering hundreds of thousands of participants in many of our major towns and cities, but particularly in London, where everyday life in the areas affected has been brought to a standstill, with Londoners and visitors alike, but particularly Jews, being intimidated by the huge numbers involved and the aggressive chanting of barely disguised anti-Semitic slogans, and the display of banners and flags in support of Hamas, which after all is a prescribed terrorist organisation here in Britain. What concerns me is the rapid progression from these marches, staged ostensibly as a protest against Israel's military actions in Gaza, is the eruption of anti-Semitism and the targeting of individual Jews and whole Jewish communities with threats and aggression, culminating in recent acts of murder, attempted murder, physical assault, arson, the desecration of Jewish holy sites, and the intimidation of Jews in their everyday lives. It's distressing to witness how Britain's established social mores, including tolerance of minority groups, have been trashed to the extent that Jewish children need physical protection going to and from school and whilst there. How Jewish students and at our universities are threatened and ostracised. How Jewish members of staff in the NHS are racially targeted and abused. And particularly obscene how Jewish patients in hospital are insulted and intimidated whilst at their most vulnerable and dependent. These events are a frightening reminder of the anti-Semitism of 1930s Germany, which became so normalized and so accepted by the majority who turned a blind eye, resulting in the end in the horrors of the Holocaust. To their shame, the Metropolitan Police have been ineffective and deficient in the policing of these marches, and have allowed them to proceed, even in the face of serious breaches of law and order and unchecked, rampant anti-Semitism. It takes considerable skill, organisational skill, and expertise in transport and logistics to successfully manage and accomplish these marches on such a huge scale, to maintain them over an extended period of over 2 years. And as such, I believe there must be a guiding hand, an organising brain, a coordinator, a project manager, managing the whole enterprise. In this regard, I believe the Muslim Brotherhood or its affiliates could certainly fulfill that role. The Brotherhood is a transnational Islamist movement founded in Egypt in 1928 with the objective to Islamize society through a combination of religious outreach, Muslim education, and political activism. But despite what some would have us believe, the Brotherhood does not want Muslims to be assimilated into non-Muslim society, for example, here in Britain. But instead, its intention is to progressively Islamize its host. The Brotherhood operates through a secretive, cell-based structure and promotes a worldview hostile to secular democracy, with its ultimate objective being a global Islamic caliphate governed by Sharia law. The Brotherhood is banned in its birthplace of Egypt and throughout the Middle East, but not here in Britain. It has a significant presence here, promoted and exercised through a network of charities, lobbying organisations and advocacy groups through which it has significant political influence. The Brotherhood is not simply a foreign ideological movement, but is a subversive force undermining Britain's social cohesion and democratic values. And as such, I believe it should be established if any of its affiliated groups are involved in any way in the organisation and promotion of the Palestinian marches. I also think the possible involvement of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in the violence against Jews and the Jewish community should be investigated. The extirpation of Israel and its Jewish population is a central tenet of the Iranian regime's political ideology and foreign policy. The IRGC's Quds force organises Iran's proxy terrorist groups of Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and is also charged with organising terrorist acts throughout the world against its own non-compliant citizens and against Israel and its allies such as the US and the Western democracies. The IRGC is prescribed as a terrorist organisation by many countries throughout the world, even including the European Union, but not here in Britain. Notwithstanding proof made public by MI5 that they have frustrated IRGC terrorist activities here, including attempted assassinations. Prime Minister Starmer's speech on the 5th of May, following the knife attacks on Jews in Golders Green, has very belatedly addressed the tsunami of antisemitism and Jew hatred since the Hamas pogrom, and has promised much to tackle it. However, it is immediate and effective action that's required, not more emotive rhetoric, before sadly other acts of terrorism are visited on the Jewish community. This week saw the 200,000th illegal migrant arriving on our shores via the small boats route since 2018. There can be no doubt that concealed in the vast majority of those fighting age males, coming as they do from third world countries, which actively do not believe in our concept of a free society, of free speech, free association, and freedom of religion. There must be those willing, I would say, to harm Jews. They may well have come here for that very specific purpose. The marches and the resultant serious acts of anti-Semitism emanating from them are disgracing our nation and all those, irrespective of race or religion, who quietly acquiesce in the face of their intimidation. Thank you for listening.